The film opens with a historical recap of the rising conflicts in Saudi Arabia, from the time when they traded their oil with Americans to become one of the richest economies in the world. To extract oil, Americans invested in heavy plants and machinery in Saudi Arabia. They also employed many American civilians to look after the plants. The Americans forced the Saudi government to arrange compounds for them, where they don't have to follow their conservative laws. Soon, occurred September 11th, an appalling act of terrorism in America, which led the FBI to form an anti-terrorism task force to find the terrorists behind the attack. In the present timeline, we are shown an American compound in Arab and an FBI agent, Ronald, who is visiting his son's school in Washington. In the compound, a vehicle surpasses the security check and opens fire on the Americans. When they run out of people, they shoot at their houses. The terrorists appear to be wearing police uniforms to mislead the people and frame the cops. But Sergeant Hatham becomes aware of them and guns them down immediately. From a distance, the terrorist families witness and film the event. Despite Hatham's best attempt to control the situation, a third terrorist sacrifices himself by detonating his bomb jacket. Ronald receives updates on this chain of events from Agent Francis, who is present at the site. Suddenly, a bomb explodes near him, killing everyone, including Francis. In Washington, D.C., Ronald debriefs the terrorism task force on the bombings in Saudi. When he lays out the number of casualties, Agent Janet breaks down in tears. Ronald whispers something in her ear, which quiets her down. Now, Ronald speaks up about his plan to arrange a meetup with their senator and announces that he will be picking some of them for the retaliation operation against the Arab terrorists. On the other hand, Sergeant Hatham gets framed as a terrorist automatically and is abducted by the Arab military, who torture him to find out about the terrorists. The Army General Abdul Malik holds Hatham responsible for the terrorist attack, knowing that the terrorists had disguised themselves in police uniforms, which only Hatham can issue to other cops. Lucky for Hatham, his innocence is proven by Police Colonel Ferris, who demonstrates to Abdul Malik that their uniforms were never stolen. Based on this evidence, Abdul Malik lets Hatham go on the condition that he remains confidential about the torture they greeted him with. Back in the United States, Ronald and Janet join Senator Gideon Young and some other higher-ups. They urge the higher-ups to send a response team to Arab, but Gideon indirectly refuses to send the response team, as he doesn't wish to fight fire with fire. Later, Ronald visits Francis's family and becomes heartbroken to speak with his young son, who knows his father has died. Back in Arab, Hatham and Ferris plan to investigate the criminals who bombed the American compound. Side by side, Ronald also sets his plan in motion. He uses his source to arrange a secret meetup with the Saudi ambassador, whom he has a lot of dirt on. He blackmails him and uses his private plane to fly to Saudi Arabia with his team, including Agent Janet Breaks, because she wishes to avenge Francis, for he was her close friend. Along with her, there's an intelligence analyst, Adam Levitt, and a bomb expert named Grant in the team. Together they charter the ambassador's cargo plane to avoid being identified at the airports. In the meantime, Prince Ahmed of Saudi Arabia calls in Ferris and reports the illegal arrival of Ronald and his team. He also refrains from investigating the bombers, claiming that he has handed the investigation to Abdul Malik. Ferris tries to discuss Abdul's poor investigation skills, but the prince adjourns their meeting, stating that he can't trust cops after seeing the terrorists in police uniforms. Now aware of Ronald's landing, Ferris arrives at the airport with his officers and arrests Ronald along with his team. He seizes their passports and locks them in a baseball court, where he has set up some beds and necessary equipment for their survival. Back in America, Gideon is seen scolding the FBI director, Robert, for letting loose his agents in Arabia. This news is delivered to him by the U.S. president, who has found out about Ronald's operation by being in contact with the Saudi government. Robert calls out Gideon's political agendas, which are stopping him from taking action against the bombers. The next day, Ronald and his team are brought to the bombed compound under police surveillance, because they have convinced the police that they are there to investigate only. Prince Ahmed also arrives at the site, so the media follows him there. For the sake of his public reputation, Ahmed nicely greets Ronald's team and humbly offers them a feast at his palace. Due to Ahmed's presence, the investigation gets called off for the day, and Ronald's team is sent back to the basketball court, where they keep monitoring the CCTV footage from the day of the explosion. The next day, Ferris takes Ronald's team back to the site for a limited amount of time and strictly warns Ronald not to intervene in the Army's investigation, though he permits them to make general observations and interview the remaining residents of the compound. Upon talking to the residents, Ronald finds out that they are accusing the cops of the attack, whereas the real terrorists are still on the loose. Up next, Ronald's team collects blood samples from the explosion site. Grant finds and collects broken pieces of the bomb to find out more about the type of bomb. When Ferris takes them to inquire of the guards at the security check, He tells them about the mosque from which the terrorists were shooting and witnessing the explosion. Soon, Ronald's time is over, and he's sent back to his shelter along with his team. When their team gets a small window to investigate the next day, they protest to visit the mosque's rooftop, from where the incident was recorded. The army arrives and forbids them to enter the mosque, which initiates a physical fight between the army and the cops. Before the situation gets out of hand, Abdul Malik allows the police to visit the place for 5 minutes, so Ronald's team tags along with them. When they get to the rooftop, Adam observes that they can not only see the compound from here but also the police stations and the road network. He concludes that the terrorists must have thoroughly planned out the attack and kept an eye on the police from up here. Ronald tells everything to Ferris and hands him the detonator, which Grant found at the bombing site. He asks Ferris to begin his investigation from the detonator since he is not allowed to. Ferris agrees and reminds him of the dinner that Prince Ahmed has invited him to. He hesitantly asks him not to bring Janet to the dinner, as the prince's religion forbids him from socializing with women. Elsewhere, the terrorists are seen making more bombs and keeping a close eye on Ronald's team and the cops, hinting that they've chosen their next target. Soon, Ronald is escorted to the palace under heavy protection. At dinner, Ahmed is again under the influence of his PR, so he behaves well with Ronald. Ronald takes advantage of his situation and convinces him to let his team and Ferris conduct a separate investigation of their own. Ahmed is not in a position to say no, so he allows them to openly investigate without any restraints. The next day Ronald arrives at the bombing site, where Grant and some locals are tasked with sucking water out of the ditch, which was caused by the bomb explosion. Janet visits the morgue house and takes fingerprints of the terrorists, who were shot by Haytham. As for Ronald, he visits the American families once again and shows them the pictures of the dead terrorists, hoping to get the terrorists identified. An old woman confirms that she saw one of the terrorists working in the compound as a gardener. On the other hand, Janet inspects the corpses of the terrorists and finds some blue-colored glass fragments in their wounds. Ferris claims that he knows something about the gardener and drives Ronald somewhere. Left behind, Grant discovers some damaged pipes from the ditch, and Janet pieces together the fragments, which form a blue marble. Outside, Grant lets everyone know that the damaged pipes are from an ambulance, meaning that the bomb was fixed in an ambulance. On the other hand, Ferris drives Ronald to a local bomb expert and shows him the detonator that Grant had found earlier. Upon observing it, the local expert labels it as an American military-grade detonator, which only someone as powerful as Abu Hamza can acquire due to his deep connections. When everyone unites at the basketball court, Ferris brings to everyone's attention that the bomb-containing ambulance was stolen from a hospital where the dead terrorist's brother works. Following this discovery, Ferris and Ronald send a heavily armed task force to a base, where they suspect the terrorist's brother is hiding. Unfortunately, the task force shoots innocent people who were merely a part of the terrorist organization. Some men from the actual organization are shown loading a car's trunk with gunpowder attached to a bomb. Back on Ronald's side, the U.S. Embassy Deputy Chief Damon comes rushing to him and urges him to return to the U.S. Ronald tries to tell him that the real culprits are still on the loose, but Damon doesn't listen to him and arranges for him to head to the airport. On their way, Ronald sees someone eyeing them from a bridge, so he suspects something bad is about to happen. Suddenly the bombed car speeds towards them, which Ronald takes note of and steers the car he is in off the road. This way, the security's SUV gets crashed into the planted car and triggers the bomb, which causes a huge explosion. Ronald's car also gets toppled due to the blast. When he and his team attempt to get out of the car, their security turns on them and attempts to shoot them, revealing them to be the terrorists. They open fire at Ronald's people from all directions, but Ronald arms them and fires back. The terrorists manage to abduct Adam and flee in their SUV. Ronald's people hijack a car and pursue the terrorists in it. They arrive at the terrorist zone, where the terrorists take Adam inside their base and order their men to launch bazookas at their car. They dodge a bazooka, which destroys an entire building. The terrorists start multiplying to take Ronald's team down, but Ronald guns down multiple terrorists and heads inside the base with Janet. They follow Adam's blood trails and find him, who is being tortured in front of the camera. While Ronald deals with the terrorists on the upper tier, Janet looks through a hole in the floor and finds some terrorists who are about to kill Adam. She shoots them dead and saves Adam's life. They regroup to find the actual terrorist, Abu Hamza, whom they find in hiding with his children and wife. Janet gives the little girl a candy as a peace offering, but Hamza's son shoots Ferris. Janet retaliates and shoots the son, whereas Haytham shoots Hamza. Poor Ferris dies for a good cause, so Ronald visits his family to deliver the news of his death and tells Ferris's son how brave his father was. When they return to the U.S., Robert tells them to prepare their answers in advance, as they will be thoroughly interrogated. There, Ronald reveals that he whispered in Janet's ear how he was going to take down the ones who killed Francis. Likewise, Hamza's daughter tells her mother that Hamza whispered about taking revenge on the Americans before dying. Here the movie ends.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome recaps.